Behind the Scenes at the New York Historical Society, an ongoing vodcast series that gives you an insider's look at our collections, exhibitions, and programs. The Beekman Family Coach.
Today we're talking with Margaret Hofer, Curator of Decorative Arts at the Society, about the Beekman Coach here in the Luce Center. Margie, tell us something about the coach.
Okay. Well, this coach was made around 1771 for a man named James Beekman, who was a prominent merchant in New York. And it's actually an incredibly rare survival. Only 3 vehicles used in 18th century America still survive today. Because the fashion changed quickly for vehicles, they were often updated and eventually tossed out when they were no longer usable. But this example was cherished in the Beekman family and was stored in their barns for many generations and finally donated to the Historical Society in 1911.
Who were the Beekmans and what's been their relationship to the Society?
Well, James Beekman was a merchant. He was the great-grandson of Dutch immigrants to New York, and his family prospered here. And during the 1750s, 60s, 70s, he became very wealthy and built a fabulous mansion known as Mount Pleasant, which was on the site of what is now the East River and East 51st Street. And we have remnants of the mansion here at the Historical Society. And over the generations, the family has given many more objects, not just pieces from the mansion and a coach, but also silver, portraits, family papers, all sorts of things. So we really have a great window into this 18th century family. What's one very interesting feature of the coach is the Beekman coat of arms, which is painted on each side of the coach. And this was fairly standard in the 18th century. If you were wealthy enough to afford such a vehicle, you would want to emblazon your family crest all over it. So here we have the Beekman family coat of arms and the Beekman crest. And all of this is very early decoration, but it was actually updated probably 2 decades or so after it was made. So a lot of the features you see here, the swags and the stars, are very federal, very classical elements that are a little more up to date than its original Rococo styling. Now, a little bit about how this worked. There were these folding stairs allowed you a graceful entrance into the coach, but would fold up and disappear when the coach was underway. And inside, you can see two facing benches, but a really rather narrow space in between. And if you imagine a woman in an 18th century ball dress, and this would have been used primarily for special occasions like going out to dances and balls, it might have been a little uncomfortable getting up those stairs and sitting on those seats in very bustling gowns.
Margie, this last question is from Janet Smith of West Nyack, New York. Were there many of these coaches around at that time? And if you didn't have one of these coaches, how did you get around?
Well, there were lots of vehicles on the streets of New York and many, many horses. But a carriage like this would have been extremely rare. And we do know that in 1770, an inventory was taken of all of the carriages in the city. And there were only about 20 that were a coach of this type, and this would have been really the Rolls Royce of all those different types of vehicles. So you would not have found many of these. There would have been many more open carriages and carriages that could have been pulled by a single horse. And for those who didn't have a vehicle, You could ride on horseback, or most people simply walked through the city. It was a fraction of the size in the 18th century and was a truly walkable city.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Behind the Scenes at the New York Historical Society, where history matters. We hope you'll join us next time. Until then, visit us on the web at nyhistory.org.